What the boggle is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Talk-Ons show, all about college football. Yeah, you thought we were done. You thought we were gone. But we're back. Doesn't matter anymore. It's a new day. It's a new week. I'm here with myself, Hank Skill, and
Missouri's Ghost. Almost accidentally did a Hank Hill voice myself.
Of course.
Can we please stop the music? Can we please just have a moment? Can we please just have a moment of silence for the Missouri Tigers?
You guys suck.
Yep. That was an embarrassment, but we'll get to that.
Yes, sir. Welcome to the Talk-On show episode for week 6. This is our reactions episode per week 6, the craziest weekend of football I think I've ever seen in my life.
I mean, we witnessed the 2007 season. We weren't like we were young, but like we were there for it.
I hardly remember it.
You know.
But this weekend was, the upsets were crazy. A lot of upsets, a lot of upset fans, baby.
Yep. A lot of happy fans too. I know I was happy.
Yeah.
I got to see this. Two of our rivals got beat, so by unranked teams.
Yes, they did, and unfortunately, we couldn't get the reckoning ourselves. But we had a good laugh when Bama fell to Vandy. But once again, we'll get to that.
It's like Uncle Lou said, we're their Super Bowl. Man, it's almost like they didn't prepare for anybody else in the preseason except us. Georgia.
Pretty much. It feels like they, Kalen DeBoer spent his entire life savings on that game in Tuscaloosa against Georgia.
Yeah. I guess we'll specify
didn't know what to do with themselves after that.
Just for the first few episodes, I think we should continue. Again, disclaimer: we are Georgia fans, so, and we're just trying to constantly stay as unbiased as possible. But we'll relish in certain things when we think necessary. Obviously, we were going to do a show last week, but we did need to take a little bit longer of a break than usual because of the loss was pretty, it was pretty devastating as a fan. But
we were pretty salty.
But we did plan to at least get an episode out that week, and then it just didn't come together because of schedules. So, but we're back now.
We waited too late, and the later in the week it got, we just got too busy.
Like sitting here that weekend thinking it's too late. I'm thinking that weekend, I'm like, all right, they think that we're just skipping this week because we just don't want to deal with it. But that wasn't the case. So, yeah, but we definitely got to talk about this week because a lot of crap happened. So,
yeah, like one of the craziest days of football ever.
But
I guess since we were already talking about it, yeah, it's ridiculous.
So, and it was almost 10. It was almost 6. Almost half the top 10 lost. But Miami went away. Once again, Miami got bailed out by the refs. Again, we'll get to that. But
wait a minute, you can't say that.
Yeah, whatever.
Well,
you're welcome, Miami.
I guess while we were still on it, of course, the Bama Vandy upset, probably one of the most historically significant upsets of all time. Vanderbilt had never, in the history of their program, had never beaten a top 5 opponent, and they hadn't beat Alabama since 1984?
84, yep. Haven't beat them since 84, and Yeah, they were 0-60 against top 5 teams going into that game. So that we literally just witnessed the first
A
ever
first of its
top 5
kind,
upset
really.
from Vanderbilt, like ever.
Um,
So that's crazy to think that, like, bro,
Potentially the biggest upset of
I
all
saw the joke
time,
that I
truthfully.
saw the joke and I thought it was hilarious. We got Vandy beating Bama before GTA 6 is released, but
Yeah.
um, it is crazy that, like, in our lifetime we got to see a Vanderbilt upset not only Bama but upset a number 1 Alabama. So, but
Yeah.
we'll talk about that. I don't think Bama should have been number 1 anyways, but
We'll reproach that in our top 15 when
yeah.
we update our official
So,
Talk-Ons top 15 for week 7 moving
but
forward.
I guess we might as
Um,
well talk about I think we should talk about winners first because I think people talk too much about the fact that Bama played bad that game, and they did not. Milrow threw for 312 yards. He had 2 turnovers, but one was a pick, and then one was he was blind. He was tackled on his blind side. So it's not like Bama didn't play well. I mean, they had 35 points in 17 minutes. It was the defense. The defense just could not do their job. Vanderbilt came out, but because of that offensive score, it put Vanderbilt a score ahead, and they just went back and forth. And at the end of the game, Vanderbilt had the lead. They had the ball, and what do you know? The defense could not do what they were supposed to. And I think it's a testament to the fact that I just don't think Alabama's defense is all that great. And I think Vanderbilt exposed that, took advantage of it. And Vanderbilt apparently, obviously, has a very good rushing game, rushing attack. So, but Vanderbilt had a game plan and they had it drawn up well. They capitalized on every mistake that they caused. That too, I want to add that too. They, Vanderbilt played a perfect game, and they capitalized off of both turnovers too. They scored off of both turnovers, one of them being a pick six, and they were both forced turnovers. It was a forced fumble and it was a pass breakup that led to an interception. So I think all the credit goes to Vanderbilt, and of course I think some credit goes to the fact that, yeah, Alabama's defense isn't great. It's not good at all because they've allowed like 60 they've allowed, I believe, 67 points in the last 4 quarters. So, yeah, it's not that's not good. Or no, 67 in the last 6 quarters, which is not
I was
good at
about to
all.
say 4 quarters. That would have been the just the Vandy game.
I mean, they close 40 points I mean, that's just, I can't believe we just witnessed Vanderbilt put 40 on an Alabama team, and Alabama's always been known for having a solid defense no matter what. So, but I think it just goes to show that you're going to have that fall off with an offensive minded coach somewhat. So it's bound to happen at some point. I think Kalen
And
DeBoer is a
then,
coach, but he has never had top tier defenses. So, and all I got to say, Coach DeBoer is welcome to the SEC. So,
yeah, Kirby already beat you to it. But yeah, welcome to the SEC. This is how we do it. Granted,
so yeah,
this
you
is
beat. But
not
this
an
is the beauty of the
SEC
SEC is because
specific
we can say that as
cast,
Georgia
but
fans and be like, "Oh, well, Georgia lost." So it's like, but the point I'm trying to make is that you can't sleep on anybody. Everybody's laughing at
exactly.
Georgia or struggling with Kentucky, but we still cranked out the win and didn't sleep on them. Alabama must have slept on Vanderbilt, and then Vanderbilt turned out to be a good team this year. I think they're a solid team. Both games they lost were by one score. One was a double overtime law, and they just shanked the field goal against Missouri. And so, and we'll talk about Pavia. Diego Pavia had the game of his life as well. The
Dude
dude
looks like
balled
a
out.
studly stud. Might be a
I mean, he
Heisman
balled
candidate.
out.
You know what I'm saying?
And just like I think it was Josh Pate who said, I mean, he owns the state of Alabama now. He beat Auburn at New Mexico State, and he just beat Alabama as Vanderbilt's quarterback. So dude owns the state of Alabama. So he's literally beat both the best teams in Alabama. So
He's the Bama killer.
good thing
All
Georgia
right, well,
doesn't play
moving on to the
Vanderbilt this
next
season.
game. Please.
No,
We
see,
don't
that's the
sleep
difference. Is
on them.
I think Kirby Smart would
We don't
have the team
sleep
he
on
has.
them
I think he
like we
has.
snore, even though we kind of slept on Bama, but we won't
I don't think.
talk
I
about
mean,
that.
I don't think it was unless you're sleeping on
Kind
Bama
of
as much as it was.
sleepwalked into that game.
But
They were not prepared. Georgia was not
I mean,
prepared for that game, and it
you
was
don't let them
obvious.
score 21 in the first quarter. The rest of the
28
game.
to
I mean,
nothing.
Bama was held to one score every quarter after the first quarter. Well, I mean, they got the safety in the second quarter, but they only
If
scored 9.
Georgia can play Georgia football for all 4 quarters of a football game, they'll be the best team in the country, which, of course, is a point we'll make later when we go over the top 15. But Georgia needs to learn how to play 4 quarters of football. But
Well, they
anyway,
just need
we'll
to learn
move
how to
on.
tackle and play the edge. But we'll get to that.
Move on to the next thing. And of course, Tennessee got downed by
Yep,
Arkansas.
they got beat by Arkansas.
And Arkansas is looking surprising to me. They're looking a little better. I mean, I kind of had a feeling they were a really capable team when they played Oklahoma State. They were putting it to Oklahoma State, who is not really that special at this point. But
I mean that
obviously, they threw the game and ended up
they gave that.
losing. But
If you want to talk about comparing talk about Alabama giving the game away to Vanderbilt, no, Vanderbilt took that game. Arkansas gave that game away to Oklahoma State. They had like 4
yeah,
turnovers, 2
Arkansas
bobbled
gave away
punts.
that game.
It's like they just completely gave away that game.
But
But
they're
credit
here
this what's
now.
even crazier about the Tennessee or the upset is that Arkansas took the lead with their backup quarterback.
Yeah,
Obviously it's like you see the starting I'm sitting there watching this game. I see the quarterback go out and I'm like, well, Arkansas, you played a good game, but here it goes. Bad luck. Sorry, man. It happens. No, he came out.
Speaking of leads, I don't think Alabama had the lead at all, not a single time in the Vanderbilt game.
No,
Not to
never led.
backpedal, but
Not one.
Vanderbilt led the entire game. That's
But
crazy.
on that
But
respect,
anyway,
it's like they made it 23-21 at one point, and you're thinking, okay, well, here comes Bama. They're turning it around. The game will end 45-23 or whatever. Nope. Then you see Vanderbilt score, put up 30. They make it 30-21, and you're like, holy crap, Vanderbilt's not stopping this second half. They're not. So, I mean, Vanderbilt played a perfect game. They literally scored half their points in the first half and half their points in the second half. So they played a full 4 quarters against that team. So
back on the Tennessee Arkansas game, I think Arkansas is a good competitive team this year. I think they're I've got Arkansas in the top 25 for me, honestly. I have Arkansas as a top 25 team just because of their team, their ability to play, and what they showed they can do against Tennessee.
yeah.
Um, and Sam Pittman I think he's a great coach. He's a great guy. Got that old, charming, old, kind Southern Southern man charm. That Southern
Let's also
grandpa
not
charm. I'll
forget.
put it that way.
Yeah, and let's not forget too that they've only got 2 losses, and one of them was the game they gave away to Oklahoma State. That one's not the greatest, but it's early, and they again turnovers galore. Their other loss was Texas A&M. That one looks much better than it used to now. Like
Yeah.
Texas A&M, looks a lot better than they did before, and they just look like a good team now. Like they look like a
And I think
solid team.
Arkansas
So
will be a solid competitor in the SEC moving forward. And maybe, you know, in any case, bowl games, whatever they end up doing. But Tennessee, I think we saw a combination of Arkansas being a good team and just outplaying Tennessee for the most part, but also the effect Yamalavea being a freshman in
yeah,
an SEC road game. We saw how that affects a freshman quarterback. I mean it, and that's honestly why I never ranked Tennessee too high, because as balanced and good of a team as they are, their starting QB is a freshman, as talented as he is. Game management and experience at the quarterback position still plays such a huge part. And I think we saw exactly where the holes in that are with him playing on the road against Arkansas, freshman mistakes,
right.
all kind of stuff. I mean, I think he'll learn from it. But I think that's something to keep in mind when moving forward when people consider Tennessee in the conversation and the rankings. But I think Tennessee will bounce back. Who are they playing next? Florida?
So I feel bad for
At
Florida.
home,
So, or they're in
Tennessee's,
Knoxville. Okay, all
yeah,
right.
they're going
Well,
to take their frustration
well,
out on
it
this
might be
poor old Florida
Florida.
team.
I might be named Florida's ghost next week. So, although the ghost of
Florida's
Florida has been hanging
zombie.
around
They're
for a
going to
while now. I
resurrect an
was about
already
to say
dead
there.
Florida just to beat him
Yeah.
again.
So,
Florida
but
zombie. All right, the next upset was Michigan versus Washington, which that happened later in the day, but we're not really doing it in a particular order. We're just kind of going over them as we think of them.
yeah,
So I'm not surprised. I think Michigan was the most overrated team in the country. The entire preseason up to this point, I think Michigan has been the most overrated team in the country, and I'm not surprised that they lost to Washington. I'm really not. Just honestly doesn't surprise me.
I'm not surprised because of Alex Orji, not a good quarterback, talented, super athletic player. So I'm not going to take that away from him, but he is not a good passer. And it bit him. It bit him hard in that game. Although they had their backup come out and like their young backup come out, and he played well. Like he came out and he played well. But I honestly, that right there is what gives me a little more faith in Michigan. That I don't think that they're just utter garbage, because if all they had was Alex Orji, I'd believe that. But they look like they have a decent quarterback or a solid quarterback that'll probably take the starting position after that game. So I think they're going to be able to, bring it back somewhat. So
I think not to hate on Michigan and be so harsh per se, but I mean I think we all kind of anybody who knows college football kind of knew Michigan defending national champs, yes, but that team and coach, that entire program has been reset. They hit the reset button when they entered this season. And I think and that's not one of those programs like Nick Saban's Alabama or Kirby Smart's Georgia where you're reloaded and ready to go next year. It's just not like that. So
right.
Michigan is mid again, unfortunately, Michigan fans.
I don't know why
Maybe you'll
it's
make it to a New Year's Six bowl. I highly doubt it, but look for a good bowl game. Hey, maybe upset Ohio State. I mean, honestly, we would love if you did that because we don't really like the Buckeyes, but but who does? But
they're the Dallas Cowboys of college football.
pretty much, I think that's a pretty accurate statement. Except, more of America likes the Cowboys. Only people from down in Ohio like Ohio
Well,
State.
I think Ohio State's even more successful than the Cowboys are. So at
Can't argue with that, honestly.
least they've won a championship in the past 400 years.
So we talked about three of the upsets. What
What was the other
about
one?
why don't you take the helm on the ones that you're paying respects to today?
Oh yeah, Missouri. Oh my gosh.
Darth
This
Miz.
wasn't an upset. This was, I mean, it's funny because they were higher ranked, but once again, Vegas knows what they're talking about. They had Texas A&M favored in this game. All I got to say is Missouri was not prepared to play in College Station. They had
I
no
think
clue
that
where
was
they
a
were.
big.
They
Well,
had
think
no clue
about it.
where they were.
They struggled in Como against two mid teams
I
back
don't
to
know.
back at home.
Vandy looking good, man. Maybe not so
Well,
mid.
Vanderbilt's looking good,
We'll
but
say.
Missouri
I mean,
was supposed to be a top 10 team,
I
right?
won't jump on not
So
saying. I don't think it was a fluke win, but it may have just been Vandy's best game. I think if Vandy can play to that and at their best every single week, then they, without a doubt, could be top 25, maybe even top
Vandy going to the
15.
SEC championship. We'll see.
So
Stay tuned.
they're they are now they're second in the SEC now because
Yeah,
Bama's
that's
above Georgia.
crazy.
Vanderbilt just beat them, so they're 1-1 in the SEC,
But yeah, I
beating.
don't think Missouri. I don't think Missouri was ready for College Station. I mean, not struggling as much as they did at home, going into College Station, one of the hardest places to play. And I guess we all kind of underestimated A&M too. I don't think anybody really knew much of what to expect from him at that point. I think now we do.
They're
You know,
what?
I
Are they
think
4-1 or 5-1 now after that?
A&M,
I think they've played every week, so they gotta be
they're five
5-1,
and
right?
one. A&M's
So
5-1.
so
Their only
A&M is
loss
off to
against
a
Notre
way
Dame in
better
week
start
one.
than any time I mean, this is Elko's already turning this team around. They look so much better. I mean, just it is unbelievable. So, they look good, and, I believe and it's nice because, Texas's schedule is becoming more and more difficult as we speak, which is good for because now granted now Texas knows to worry about Vanderbilt, so maybe Vanderbilt should have lost that, beat Texas. I mean, he's like, which one do you want? I want him to beat Texas. No, I'm kidding. I want Georgia to be the team to beat Texas, and that's what I
Yeah, I
want.
don't want to
As long as
rely on
Georgia just
Vanderbilt
beats
to do
them,
all their
then
dirty work for us.
imagine Vanderbilt. But yeah, well, doing dirty work. If Vanderbilt beats Texas, and if they can beat Texas, they can beat anybody. And might as well put Vandy in the SEC championship. But anyways, uh, Texas, plays Arkansas and Texas A&M. Obviously they play Texas A&M. So there's two teams that are going to be a problem, and Vanderbilt I think will be a problem. I think Texas will become prepared for Vanderbilt now, but on the off chance that Vanderbilt plays another top game, because I believe they also play in Nashville as well. So at least Vanderbilt will also have home field advantage, however much that works for them, because obviously the Tide fans took over 70% of the stadium, which is honestly even worse. Next time Nick Saban, just remember that karma is a thing.
Yeah, we didn't even mention that. Technically, we have the thing called dog food, is the bulletin board material, like the reverse of rat poison that Nick Saban used to always talk about. It's that bulletin board material that lights a fire under the opponent. Yeah. Ironically, Nick Saban was the one I feel like gave Vanderbilt the dog food, because at some point before that game, during some of the casting shows, he said Vanderbilt was the easiest place to play in the SEC. And
I mean, he's not wrong, but you don't say it out loud.
historically, he's not wrong. But yeah, you don't just give him that dog food. But I mean, hey, it ain't his program no more. Who knows? Maybe he did it because getting revenge for Kirby,
Yeah, he still has
his good friend Kirby.
he still loves that program. So, but yeah, Texas.
A&M is looking like a contender for
So,
either New Year's or for the playoff. They're looking
but
for like a contender period for the SEC.
Texas's
What
schedule
have you?
though is also looking harder because now Arkansas looks like Arkansas is a solid team. I think they're worthy of top 25 at this
Yeah,
point. Um, Kentucky obviously also looks good. They've got a top 10 upset, and they've gotten they gave Georgia they almost got two top 10
almost beat
upsets.
Georgia. So I think
And
Kentucky is in the conversation for top
Vanderbilt
25 too.
So Vanderbilt, just beat Alabama, and their trough, their lowest, their floor is not good because they lost to Georgia State at their floor, but at their peak they beat Alabama. So it's like, can you find a balance there? And if you can find that balance, I think you're worthy of top 25. And then Texas A&M looks really good. So Texas, and then Texas also plays Georgia, obviously, and then Oklahoma. So Texas has, I think, a much tougher schedule than before.
Which we
So
can
that
address
makes me
more
feel
about
better.
Texas in the next
So
segment. But
it's good. The
yeah,
latter, I'm just saying this now because I've been complaining about their schedule, and I think their schedule is atrocious. But this second
yeah,
half
their
at least is
schedule looked
going to be.
atrocious for the
It's
most part.
definitely bottom heavy.
But you
So
never know things. The preseason. I always feel like the preseason is like not to be taken seriously because you don't really know until the season happens. You really don't.
I mean, yeah, but
So
no, these first 6 games. these first 6 games with Texas were like ridiculously atrocious. I mean, they're
I mean,
their
yeah, if you're
first
talking about like
their first and only
group of
conference
5.
their first and only conference game is Mississippi State.
Yeah, which is the
And Tulsa
worst
beat
team in the
Mississippi
SEC.
State worse than Texas did.
But we'll talk more about Texas soon. There was another upset. We covered
It was
one of the
USC.
greatest upsets of all time. We covered Michigan getting beat by Washington. Texas A&M showing up, coming to play. They're competing now, boys. Better be ready for them Aggies. And also, sorry, Missouri, you had a good run, but
Yeah, I think they dropped all the way in the AP to like 21.
I really had faith in them too. I really thought Missouri was going to be,
I was
because of
I
what they
was
did last season. I thought
yeah.
Missouri was going to be like championship material this year. But I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's what, one
It's
loss,
not
so we'll
over,
see.
but I
Not
mean, you
over.
can't lose by 31 points to, A&M's a good team, but they're not elite. You can't lose to a non-elite team by 31 points and then expect to like have any respect. So,
But speaking
that's
of
the
another
difference here
team,
is like with committees coming here, with the committee making these decisions still, it's like, man, you can't be losing like that. So,
well, speaking of another team with high hopes, that came in the preseason as a heavyweight contender, um, USC. That was rough.
yep, that Lincoln Riley offense is just not doing its thing this season.
For some reason, it's not.
Maybe I'd say for some reason Lincoln Riley just can't pick one. He can't just pick both sides of the ball. It's either offense or defense. It's like now his defense is better than past defenses, but now his offenses it's the worst offense he's had in the past, 50 years. So
Right, Minnesota. It wasn't coming up on my thing. I couldn't remember who had beaten
24-17.
them.
Only put 17 on Minnesota. So Michigan put 20.
Minnesota.
Michigan put 27 with Alex Orgy. So that's crazy that USC came in with Lincoln Riley and only got 17 points on the board. So, you know,
I
I
think USC is.
he only
They're
picked.
kind of like LSU to me. Both of those teams, and LSU, we still don't know for sure, so we're still giving them their props for now. But USC and LSU, they're so wishy-washy. Both of those programs right now are just so on the fence. I mean, at this point, I think USC just isn't gonna make it in the playoffs at this rate. But LSU, there's still a lot of questions out there, but they're just as wishy-washy to me. So we'll see.
Yeah,
We'll talk about that later. But truthfully, and props to Minnesota for playing a hell of a game at home, because USC still a decent football team. That's a good
yeah,
football team, a good program, and Minnesota. Hats off to you guys, to the Gophers, for beating USC as you did at home, because honestly, I kind of enjoyed it. I like that. I always root for the underdogs anyway, and Minnesota. I've always been a sleeper fan of Minnesota. So go Gophers!
but they just
Minnesota for
USC's
Big Ten champs.
USC just can't bring out that offense. They just don't have the offense that they used to. And maybe it is because they're missing Caleb Williams right now. I don't know. Or just because Lincoln Riley can't balance both sides of the ball properly. I don't know. Maybe he's
I
like, oh,
think
well, I got to get my defense better. And then he slouched on the offense or something. I don't know. But
Yeah, I think he's having a. Sorry, I had to fix my here. I think Lincoln Riley's just. I don't think he can find that balance as a coach, truthfully, and maybe it's because he just doesn't get the right assistants. Maybe he's not getting a good enough coaching staff, or maybe he's trying to manage too much of it himself, and
maybe.
he just not. He can't handle all of that. Can't keep it up, because that's the thing. It's either one or the other with Lincoln Riley week to week. And I mean, truthfully, usually the offense is his strong point, and defense is never really there per se, but he's
Yeah.
just at this point, Lincoln Riley's just he's just flippity floppity. So where USC goes from here, I think a Big Ten. I mean, they're still a competitor for whatever may happen. I mean, at this
I don't
point, to
know.
get into the playoffs.
I don't know. They've lost 2 Big Ten games, so like they have. I think at this
Well,
point they're
maybe
going to
not.
have to be an at large, and
Yeah,
I just so
because I forgot their other loss was Michigan. So yeah, I mean, as in terms of the Big Ten, maybe not, but as an at large in the playoffs, that you got to win out, and you're going to have to win out very convincingly. So like you're going to have to blow some people out. But
yeah.
you know,
We talk about. I know people think these games don't matter as much in the playoffs. It's like maybe the first or second loss doesn't matter immediately to where, oh, well, you're just done, your season's over. But it puts immense pressure on the latter parts of the season. And especially if you play in a good conference like the Big Ten or the SEC, it's like, look at the SEC. Georgia took that loss to Bama. There's 3 other one-loss teams right now in the conference. So it's like Georgia's pretty much going to have to win out if they want to be a 4 seed, like a top 4 seed. They're going to have to
yeah.
win out.
I mean, Georgia's
So,
going to have to win out every SEC game, and obviously,
I mean,
you know,
sure, we
to get
can. Georgia can lose probably one more. They could probably lose to Texas and then still make it in the top, in that top 12 as an at large. But if you want that bye, you're gonna have to win out. You're gonna have to. So,
but
and
so
you're gonna
I
have to
guess
win out, and
we
you're gonna have to hope. And because now now that Georgia's lost that one game, it's like not only do you have to win out, but you also have to hope that Vanderbilt or Alabama loses another SEC game. So you got to hope Texas beats Alabama, and then you got to hope you can beat Texas. You're gonna have to. That's how it's gonna have to go. So
well, we'll see. We don't want to have to rely on other teams, but because I feel like
that's what happens.
Georgia does that too
You
much.
took the loss. Well, we used to, not
But you
anymore.
got
We used to just earn it, but this team's, they lost. So, and
got to stop losing to
they
Bama.
lost an
Got to
SEC
stop
game,
losing to Bama.
and it's not divisions anymore. So that loss to, Bama hurts a lot. So
But anyway, I mean, we'll talk about the dogs in a little bit because we're about to move on to the next segment. We're going to try to make this as short as possible, at least shorter than any video we've made so far. So,
well, here's the thing. I think that was all the upsets, right? So we might as well go ahead and move to the top
yeah, I
15.
mean, and
So,
Miami almost got
oh
upset,
yeah,
but
Miami as well. Almost got upset. Got bailed out by the refs
they
because that
pulled it
crap
out
didn't
to
get called as
California,
targeting. But if that gets
which
called targeting, they get the 15 yards and it's game over. So
it was that was textbook targeting. I'm actually surprised, which it's one of
yeah,
the things
it's
I find so much frustration in with college football and officiating because they'll call a player tickling the buttocks of the quarterback, roughing the passer. Um, but
I
that's
mean they
not
called
targeting,
butt targeting. They called butt targeting, and they don't call this the most
right?
blatant targeting call ever. And it's
Call
just
back to the first episode.
I think that was the
um,
first episode.
was it?
No, it wasn't the
Maybe
first episode.
no. It was the second episode. You're right because you were pick Saban the first one, but
Yeah.
targeting was second episode. But
So
anyway, I mean, I think we got some things to say about Miami moving forward, which has a lot to do with their spot coming up in our top
yeah.
15. Um,
Well, why don't we just go ahead and roll it out?
so let's go ahead and move on to that segment. But props to Cal for playing a good game and showing out so hard against Miami. I mean, arguably should have been your game, but where you go moving forward, we'll see. Miami, let's see what you got because you got a lot to prove moving forward, buddy. Um,
Yeah.
okay, so now we're going to move on to our next segment, the last one of this episode. Just one more hats off to this past weekend. One of the craziest weekends in college football. That was nuts. Like
Well,
that was crazy.
it goes to show, because even I said it myself, and I know better as a diehard college football fan. I should have known better. I said, "Oh, there's not really any good games on this weekend." And what do you know?
Everybody
5
thought that, oh, it's
immaculate
going to be a
games.
snoozer. Yeah,
4
this is
immaculate
college
games. I mean, the
football.
Tennessee and
Here
Vanderbilt
we
game was
go.
fantastic, or the Bama and Vanderbilt game was fantastic. The Tennessee and Arkansas game was great. They were all a lot of good games this weekend. So
Let's have some more
just
weekends
remember,
like
if you
this.
ever tell yourself that it's going to just be an easy weekend, and it's like there's no good games, you should probably just take that back. Don't say it. If you're thinking it, don't say it, because it's probably not going to be true. College football finds
Coaches,
a way.
coaches are the last ones on the planet that need to think that way. DeBoer, but anyway, I'm not going to rag on DeBoer. It's his first year in
DeBover.
the SEC.
Is that
He's got
what
some
you were
things.
seeing?
Yeah,
DeBover.
yeah, yeah. People were calling him DeBover during the end of that game, but I mean, he still beat Georgia. He still beat Kirby Smart's Georgia in their first SEC game. So he's kind of like the scales are kind of balanced right now as far as what to expect from him.
College football is just in a weird spot this season. I think
Yeah,
like
it
we're
is.
already seeing the effects of the transfer portal and the NIL pretty quickly. And it just looks like
Which I didn't
talent
think
is
we would
not
see it that
it is
fast,
not it
but
just doesn't look like it's as top heavy as it used to be. So
which is good and perfect timing for the
yeah, no, like
12 team playoff. So it'll make college football more interesting. I think there's issues to talk about with the transfer portal and NIL, but I think stepping back from all of that and just looking at what like the effects
yeah.
on balancing the field of college football, it's good.
Yeah, I hope that's what it is, and it's not just another random, one-off season like 2007. Like, I hope this is going to be consistently a
It could
thing.
be because I didn't expect those effects from the NIL and transfer portal to take hold so quickly. I mean, I guess they've been around longer than the 12 team playoff, so it had time to build steam, but I don't know. We'll see. But all right, everybody. It's time for the Talk-Ons official top 15. Don't listen to the AP poll. They don't know what they're talking about. Coaches poll, what do they know about football? All you need to do is listen to the brothers of the Talk-On show, Cam, aka Hank Skill, her, and
So stupid.
Chase, Missouri's Ghost. Ooh.
May they rest
We
in
are
peace.
right objectively always. So here comes the Talk-On's official top 15. Dang it, Bobby. I can't get the screen to come up. All right. I'm going to go ahead and I actually forgot how to present for a moment. Hank Skill presents the Talk-On's official top 15. Let's talk about that.
Stop.
I might have to be careful. I doubt it, but that could be copyright strike.
Yeah,
Shout out to Good Mythical Morning for all you good
that's the
mythical
second.
fans
That's the
out there,
second good. I think that's
and
the
Rhett and
second
Link.
good mythical morning shout out.
That is. Hopefully Rhett and Link will see us, notice us.
And
Anyway, let's
anyway,
talk about football. All right, so we got number 1, Texas. I'm kind of getting tired of Texas being at number 1 personally because I mean you can't punish them for having a bye, but I think it's just the games that have been played from everybody else, the resumes up to this point, and the rosters that are out there besides Texas. I didn't want to put Texas at number 1 because number 1, they've played absolutely goose egg competition so far. And number 2, I mean, I think their roster is elite, but I don't think it's any more elite than Ohio State or Georgia's roster, maybe even
I think it's more elite
Oregon.
than I definitely
But
think it's more. I think it's more elite than Ohio State's and Georgia's because mainly just because.
why do
So
you think that?
for
I think quarterback is the only advantage Texas
quarterback,
has.
their receivers are on par, if not better than Ohio State's. Their defense is definitely, I think, going to be better than Ohio State's. I mean, it's hard to tell, obviously, because neither Ohio State nor Texas have played a offense that can do more than look at the ball.
That's
But
true.
I still think they're the only teams that have went out there and truly done exactly what they were supposed to do on the field every week, and have the talent on top of it. So they are undefeated, have done everything they're supposed to every week, and they have the talent. That's why I think Texas and Ohio State should be. And yes, I think that their rosters are near equivalent. I just think that Texas has the better quarterback, and it's like that simple for me for why Texas is at number one. And then Ohio State, again, they did what they're supposed to, so that's why they're above Georgia. But Georgia, I think, is really hurt by their linebacker core. Secondary hasn't looked all that great,
I
but
think it's just depth. Georgia doesn't have the
but
same
that
depth that
linebacker
they've had
core
in the
is
past
not playing
years.
the edge. They're not playing the edge worth a damn. They're not tackling at all. It just so, but
I've never seen this from. I mean,
but
Georgia's
Georgia
defense, and I haven't
Georgia had
seen
a
this
good
so
bounce
far.
back game. They showed good resilience in the red zone, held Auburn because Auburn still moved the ball fairly well on them. But
And
Georgia is
Auburn
always
played their
known.
best game. Auburn had no
Georgia,
turnovers, and their starting
yeah,
quarterback returned. They played their best game.
Georgia is known for having good red zone defense, and even with the the not as great linebacker core, still came out on top, holding them to 2 field goals. They were 2 for 2, in field goals,
Well, we're
and then
not
they
going to
had
get
that
too
one breakout
specific
run.
about
So,
Georgia's
but
games and schedule in terms
anyways,
of,
well,
because we got to cover everybody.
I
But
know I'm just trying to say like my argument for Georgia why they're still at number 3 because I know
well,
there's going to be a lot
yeah,
of people,
because I
oh, they
mean,
shouldn't be at number 3 because
they
it's
lost
like
to
I still think
Bama.
they're a talented roster. They're still Georgia, still a talented roster. Still have Kirby Smart. And let's not forget, like, yeah, they had a loss and it looked bad against Alabama at first, but you take that first quarter away, Georgia mauled Alabama the rest of that game. That first quarter was bad. Bama scored half their points that first quarter, and then Georgia adjusted, and it was 9-7 second quarter, and then Georgia just ran away with it in the second half, and then Alabama had a Hail Mary play, big play by Ryan Williams. And like that's how you win games sometimes. But like the fact that Alabama led 28-0 and they had to be the team to make the gutsy bomb to win the game. It's like, give props to Georgia give a lot of props to them for almost coming back. And people can say what they want to about Beck. I think Beck's system that he's in right now is his problem. I don't think he is the problem because Bobo let him slang it that second half, and he threw for over 300 yards, 3 touchdowns. I think he did have one, and he had that last pick, and he had the fumble, which that wasn't great. But the rest of his game was pretty good. It was great the second half. So
I mean, I think all in all, the case for Georgia is, yeah, okay, they lost to Alabama and Tuscaloosa, but you have to, when you watch the film, you have to watch the games. When you know who's coaching them, you know who the roster is, who the players are, because this our top 15. There's a lot of things that go into this as far as considerations. It's not just like the AP.
yeah,
They completely hinge on just the win-loss record. It's all about the win-loss record. We focus more on things like quality of opponents, uh, the
it's like
players
putting. I'm
that you
sorry,
have,
Oregon
the
and Penn State above
rosters.
Georgia is insane.
Yeah, because I mean,
Just
let's
because
get
they're
real. Penn
undefeated. Like,
State
come
and
on.
Oregon do not have the roster or coaching uh, level that Georgia has. They just don't. And I mean, we'll
Do I
see
think
what
they?
they
Do I
have to
think
give
they?
later. But
Do I think like they have a chance? Like, we always talk about well, if this team plays 10 times, how many times do they beat them? It's like, do I think that maybe they could come away with 3 or 4 out of those 10 wins? Yeah. And that's why they're right under Georgia at 4 and 5. But I still think Georgia wins 6, 7 out of 10 times if they play 10 times. Like, I think Georgia's still the better team, but it's closer. It's a lot closer than normal. So, than like past years. So, but, I just don't think Penn State has the offense. That's their problem. They don't have the offense. It's like the only way you're beating Georgia this season is to have a good offense. I think. Like, I think you have to have a really good offense, no matter what. That's always Georgia's
and I
weakness.
think
Is have it,
I
and
think Oregon's
Penn State doesn't have it.
defense is I think Oregon's defense is wishy-washy. They play good one game and they play all right the next game.
Yeah,
Um, I think a lot of that has to do with Oregon is just not one of those programs that brings in a lot of the 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 elite, big, but also super athletic defensive talent that teams like Georgia and Texas and Ohio State do. Um, but I think
yeah. Because
Oregon,
granted, the only good team they played put 34 on them. So I mean, so
yeah. And I think Boise State
and we can compare. Okay, Bama put 41 on Georgia, but Bama has one of the best offenses in the country,
yeah,
as
I mean,
opposed to
Bama has
Boise
some of the best
State,
offensive
who
talent in the
is
country.
sort
And
of,
not to mention, I mean,
but
not to keep talking about Georgia, but Georgia did that first quarter was what blowing that first quarter determined that game. Take that first quarter out, like you said, and Georgia runs Bama.
which
But
sadly that's part of the game. I mean, it's one of the quarters of the game.
so far,
But
we've got, like I said, and I think I'll close on Georgia with this. If Georgia plays their football, if Georgia plays Bulldogs football for all four quarters of a game, they're at number one for me. They're the best team in the country if
yeah,
they
I
learn to
mean,
play all four quarters. But right now,
I don't know. I
Texas
still
and
don't have a
Ohio's
lot of faith in that linebacker core this season so
well,
far. So our
you
edge
know,
play is awful.
well,
Their edge
Texas and
play.
Ohio State, they are, they've done what they need to do. They haven't played anybody. Texas, we'll find out about Texas this weekend when they play a pretty good opponent. And I think more specifically, a great defense, arguably one of
And
the
it's a
best
rivalry
defenses
game.
in college
So
football, a rivalry game. And I believe they're playing in Oklahoma. So,
no, it's the Red River rivalry. They play on neutral site.
right. Okay. They had Oklahoma as the home team for the matchup.
And
That's
that's
why it confused me. Ohio State, they got Oregon this weekend. Isn't that right?
yep.
Ohio State has Oregon this weekend, so we're
Got
about
a
to
hell of a
find out
game.
what both Ohio State and Oregon are really made of. Um, so I think Oregon is rightfully at number 4. Penn
I
State,
think
like you said, what?
they're undefeated, and again, we don't like to talk about, but like to be undefeated, you still got to be a solid team, I think. And Penn State has a good defense, always has a good defense. I always think they're a preseason princess, and I think they're still kind of like, but I'm sorry, but Tennessee can't lose to Arkansas, but Penn State win all their games fairly handily, and me put Tennessee above them. I just can't do that
I
because
think
Penn State's handled their business. Tennessee lost to an unranked team. I think Arkansas should be ranked now, but at the time they lost to an unranked Arkansas. So
I think Penn State. At this point, we're just kind of giving Penn State their flowers, just to put it in summation. Do I think Penn State's a better team than Tennessee? I don't know about that one, Chief, but because
I
I
think
mean
it'd be a
Tennessee,
fantastic game.
I think it'd be a great game, but at the end of the day, I think Tennessee plays harsher competition, and I think Tennessee has a better roster than Penn State. But Penn State, we're giving them their flowers this week, and we're giving them their recognition. I think Illinois is a pretty damn good team this year, and I mean Penn State showed that they can dominate and control the game against Illinois. So we'll see what happens.
Right.
I don't remember who Penn State plays next.
I don't remember either.
They might have a bye week next week.
No, they play USC.
Penn State plays USC. Yep. Which, not that USC is much anything special at this point, as we can see. But Penn State is still going to play USC, and USC is going to be looking for a bounce back against Penn State. Penn State's going to have a target on their back. It's going to be a rough game, and Penn State can really show us what they're made of in that game.
If they can come out and win this handily, then they will have assured their 5th spot for us. But I guess these next 2 we should talk about collectively, because I know we're going to make a lot of people upset between the 2.
But 6 Tennessee and 7 Alabama.
I think a Vandy loss is worse than an Arkansas loss. And
for one thing,
these past 2 games with Alabama have shown me that their defense is mediocre, as I was talking about earlier. Defense is mediocre, maybe even less than mediocre. I mean, 67 points over 6 quarters is bad. It's atrocious. And it being 40 points by Vanderbilt, that's bad. That is really bad. Tennessee, they didn't score enough against Arkansas, but Arkansas scored the most points out of any team that scored on Tennessee, and that's 19 points. Tennessee has a good defense. They have a solid defense, and I think their offense is equal or not, if not better, when Iyamaleava is on his game. He is a freshman, so he's maybe not going to always play his best game.
Maybe more balanced, if nothing else. Their offense is arguably more balanced than Alabama's, because Jam Miller and the running attack for Alabama is good, But Sampson and that
Yeah, it's
Tennessee
not
rushing
the
attack,
craziest, but yes, they got a
that's
fantastic rushing attack.
yeah,
And also, I think it's going to change as well because Tennessee and Bama play, and I think Nico Iamaleava is going to be playing his best against Alabama because they play in Knoxville. So he's not going to have that Arkansas crowd to shake him up or anything. I think he's going to go in there and and then he got this is sort of his freshman game. It's like I just realized I'm a freshman. There's mistakes I can make. I'm going to learn from
yeah,
these
still got a
mistakes.
lot to learn.
So,
But
so
I think, and to reiterate that our rankings, it's better wins are greater than better losses. Yes, Alabama has a better win against Georgia than Tennessee's best win being against Oklahoma. But at this point, there's more to it because week to week
yeah,
things can be circumstantial. And I mean Georgia, they lost Alabama, but Georgia plays all four quarters their best football, and I think they blow Alabama out the water. I think Tennessee is just, as we mentioned, Tennessee just seems to be a better all around team. We think Tennessee is more balanced than Alabama,
yeah,
and that's what gives them the one up on Alabama.
right. I think so. I think for these next ones, we should try and fly through best we can because we're pretty long on time. So
Yeah, we're gonna try to end it at the 1 hour mark because we really weren't supposed to go over 45
yeah,
minutes. But hey, if we ended at the 1 hour mark, then we would have cut it down
still by
once
half an
again, cut
hour.
it down
So,
30
but I
minutes
guess all
more
right.
than the last
So we'll
one.
talk about it this way: Ole Miss, great offense, solid defense. They have one loss, and it was to Kentucky. And Kentucky, I don't think is a bad loss. I don't. I think Kentucky is a solid team, a team that can give anybody a run for their money if they're there to play. So that's why we kept Ole Miss up there. I was debating between Ole Miss and Clemson, but yeah, I mean, I still think because
I think
Clemson's
Ole Miss has
only
played
loss
better
is to
competition so
Georgia,
far.
but Ole Miss also just has better wins overall, which I
Yeah,
can agree with. So,
Clemson doesn't really. Clemson's shown what they can do, what they're capable of, but they haven't played stout competition yet. And honestly, their defense, although a lot of the scores against them have been in what you would call trash time, I suppose, a lot of them anyway, not all of them. I think Clemson's defense has a lot to work on.
yeah,
Um, their offense looks phenomenal, but once again, Clemson hasn't played stout enough competition for us to give them the edge over Ole Miss. We still have them in our top 10 because they're still a great program with elite talent
and an
uh,
elite coach. People can hate on Dabo all they want to,
and an
but at
elite
his
coach.
core, he's an elite head coach.
Everybody thinks it's over for Dabo and Clemson, but they got at least one more breakout season, maybe more left in them. I'm telling you. So we'll see.
Yeah,
Miami,
Miami dropped to 10. They are the lowest undefeated team because I don't think they should really be undefeated. Two struggle games against not great competition that both of them were kind of decided at a final play that was a ref's decision, which this last one was targeting, should have been the game. But, I digress on that. Overall, Miami, just their defense is not good. Defense isn't good. It's not good. Cam Ward, he's good. He's about all they got, in my opinion. He's all they got. And they also got that 400-year-old tight end or whatever, that's been on their team, that's been
yeah.
in the college for 25 years or whatever. So, they got him too. So, but I've lost a lot of faith in Miami. Their only good, solid win really is Florida, and Florida is a dumpster fire. So
Yeah. I
I
mean,
just,
we were all high on Miami entering the season because we all want to see the U come back. We all want to see it, and we had Miami ranked pretty high in our early top 15 rankings because they looked like they had a lot going for them. But after seeing them play
yeah,
more, obviously as the weeks go on, Miami just looks like you said, they're still undefeated and they still get to keep their spot in the top 10 for now, but they're not very consistent in terms of the expectation. And they haven't played anybody. And who they have played struggle games back to back against opponents. Nah, we got to
yeah,
drop you. We got to drop your friends.
yeah. So
But guess who made it back? Or
Yep.
I think this is the first time they've been
Oh
in our
man,
top 15.
it's
Guess who
insane
made it
that
to
it's
our top
going in ours.
15?
We're a couple of Notre Dame haters. Nah, I mean, but
We're not
they
Notre Dame
they're
haters. We just hate the
I just hate how overrated.
unwarranted
You know,
glaze that Notre Dame
but
gets every
they've looked good.
season.
They've looked good so far. Had some good wins, and now that loss to
Preseason princes.
like that or not loss, that win with A&M helps them out a lot because A&M looks a lot better. We even moved into our top 12 because they're 5-1 and now have a top 10 win under their belt. You can say what you want, say, oh, Missouri's just not that good. At the end of the
They're a
day, you
good
just
team.
have
That's
to
a
go
damn good
based
team.
on your current season rankings. They were a top 10 team, and A&M absolutely just
And
manhandled,
that's
just
another thing. They
destroyed,
beat them
just killed them.
41-10.
Yeah.
Even
So,
if Missouri never was a top 10, top 15, top 20, 25, whatever you want to call it. I believe
yeah,
Missouri is a top
right.
25 worthy team.
And
But
yeah,
A&M clocked like 41-10. Come on now.
and then LSU, they haven't really moved. They've stayed here because they're wishy washy. I mean, they have a bye last week or this past weekend, right?
They
Pretty
beat
sure.
South
Or did
Alabama.
they? Oh, that's why I didn't even know. They just so
They just
yeah.
cruise
Well,
control against a
yeah. So I mean,
opponent.
they're 13. I think
Cupcake.
that matches the AP. I think that's where they belong right now because good
It's
teams,
hard to
they're
say
solid,
otherwise.
but it's
They're so wishy-washy.
hard to say otherwise because they really haven't had that one definitive loss or anything that you're like, okay, they definitely are not good enough. Um, but then we got BYU in here, which I think that is my
Look who
pick
made it in the
for.
top 15.
That is, I was about to say Group of Five. They're not Group of Five though.
Big 12.
They're Big 12. So they'll be. Man, BYU could make it. Like I think BYU has a very good chance of making it in the top four in the playoffs.
What
I think they have
happens
a
after
really good
that?
chance of winning the Big 12. I don't know.
Who knows?
They
But
look good. I mean, they look like a good team. They are solid. I mean, you know,
I thought that their win against Kansas State, and I don't know what to think of Kansas State at this point, but I thought their win at Kansas State, which is obviously their best win, was kind of like a one-off, like home freak show game where Kansas State just fell apart and
yeah,
laid an egg. Because I thought Kansas State was the best team in the Big 12. Right now, BYU is holding that title
yeah.
uh, as it stands, and I mean, yeah, I mean BYU looks kind of nutty right now. Like I don't even know what to expect from them at this point because they've played some good football. Like
Yeah. Well, I also, actually, there's some other teams in there, such as like, you got we talk about Group of Five. There's a lot. We got Navy and Army. They're both undefeated.
but I think it.
America's game. Well, like I'm talking Group of Five, America's game. I just wanted to mention this. America's game. The Navy versus Army is going to
Oh,
be crazy this
that
year.
game is
So
gonna go hard this season, bro. I can't wait. It's gonna be crazy. I mean,
this is why I
I
love
don't think
America.
either of those teams. I don't think either of those teams have a chance to make it in the playoff because I mean, I just don't think
I
they
think Boise
do.
State's probably going to end up taking
Boise
their
State maybe
like the
has the
Group of
best
Five
chance.
spot
I
probably.
I don't know, man. Maybe, but
James
Boise
Madison,
State's
maybe.
defense, their defense is atrocious,
Hey, speaking
and
of James,
I don't know, man. Like and
oh,
Genty,
never mind. I
what's
take
up?
it back. UL Monroe beat James Madison. Damn, they were that was my
Yeah, JMU was our group of five prediction. What who the group of five team is going to be? I don't think anybody can say right now because yeah, Boise State looks like the favorite and they got GNT and everything, but I mean, they're
who
like I said,
also
their
may I
deep.
add this is insane. I just saw a stat line, so we need to get to Indiana right after this. But John T is over 1,000 yards already.
Yeah, I saw that. He's already
That is
over 1,000
insane.
yards halfway
That
in the
is
season. Now
insane.
look,
Granted, he's not
look.
playing any defenses, but
I just want to
I think
put
he's
this
still a
out
great
there.
player.
Okay, Genty is a great player in a very, very bad conference with bad players and teams around him. I'm not saying this to invalidate and diss Genty, but everybody kind of slow down, kind of calm down. I don't think he's the best running back in the country. I don't think he's the Heisman. Because the thing about it is, you can't make claims like that until you play the best competition. I
Yeah.
mean, he looks like a good running back in just a trash conference. He just doesn't play anybody. Like if you watch that Utah State game, those guys look like pee-wee leaguers out there. They couldn't hug their grandma, much less attempt a tackle on a runner.
Yeah.
So I mean, and when that happens, yeah, most good players are going to run all over the field. But I
Yeah.
mean, Genty, he he's a stud. He's a dude. He's a unit. If you want to call him that. But I think it's hard to. You got to keep that in perspective of who they play.
Yeah.
And also, if that's all Boise State has, on top of all of that being said, and their defense not being anything special, even against the competition that they do play, Boise State's not going to make it if that's the case.
I will
But
say though, I'm pushing for him. I think it'd be really cool. I want to see someone break the single season record for rushing yards because he's on par to do that. Halfway through the season, you've already gotten most players' whole season yardage. But anyways,
I'll mention
Indiana
this.
now.
Well, let me finish off on the Big 12 because the AP has Iowa State ranked at number 11. I think that's crazy. Number one. Number two, I think BYU is more deserving of a top ranked spot than Iowa State because of, mainly their win against Kansas State.
Yeah.
Um, but Iowa State, Iowa State's best win as far as like caliber of program was Iowa, and they beat Iowa by 1 point. Iowa State has not played a soul. And I've seen their team play, and their offense looks pretty. I mean, they look like a decent team. Their defense just doesn't look that great. Not on like a top caliber level. I don't see it. I don't see it in Iowa State. I think once again the AP is leaning too much on getting high off of win-loss record, uh, and not enough on quality of opponents and who's at the helm. Iowa State they didn't make it for me. BYU is more convincing to me for the Big 12 right now than Iowa State. So if anybody was wondering why Iowa State's not on there, they haven't played anybody. They really haven't shown
Yeah.
anything.
Well, yeah. I mean, I
But number
agree.
14, you better look out for BYU. Boys,
But
you underestimate. They might just make it in the top 4. They might just be in the playoffs. We'll see.
uh,
But
another
next
team to
up,
look out for is
we have an
Indiana,
interesting one.
undefeated.
Indiana.
I
The
believe, like you said, they
only
are now
bowl
officially
eligible
the
team
only
in the
bowl
season
eligible
right
team right now.
now.
They are 6-0,
The first to do it.
which is crazy. They're 6-0. They've won every game every week and played every week, and they're in the Big Ten, so they have a tough schedule. They got competition coming up. They got to play Ohio State. They got to play. I was going to say Michigan, but I guess Michigan's not all that not too much, not too
Technically, they're
difficult.
number 1 in the Big Ten standings too.
Tied for number 1, but they play Ohio State and they play. Yeah, I mean, honestly, like Indiana's in good shape because the only like really good team they play is Ohio State. They may make it to the Big Ten championship.
They could,
So
and I think for a lot of people out there wondering, like, okay, how could you pick Indiana and not? How could you say what you said about Ohio State, not Ohio State, but Iowa State, and then put Indiana in there? Well, thing about it is uh, Indiana has beaten every single one of their opponents by at least 2 or more scores. Every single game that they've won as 6-0, they've won by 2 or more scores, and they have 3 Power 4
yeah,
wins.
and
Not
they
that they're the best
destroyed
wins ever,
UCLA,
but
who
and
just
that was one of the big ones too, is because UCLA has played a lot of high ranked teams, and it was kind of like that common opponent gauge. Like, okay, well, if LSU beat them like this, and Oregon beat them like this, and okay, well, look at what Indiana did to them, like that common opponent gauge. India beat UCLA worse than most of the other ranked teams did, so that played a big part in that
yeah,
decision. And once again, not that they've played the best Power Four teams, but every opponent they've played, they've blown out and beaten no less than 2 or more scores. So Indiana, they're a competitive team, and it
yeah,
looks like
they're
they've got a
competitive.
powerful offense.
I think they're the real deal. So, and I think actually, like, I actually can't believe I'm saying this, but I think, and I hope so too, that the Ohio State and Indiana game is like a big deal. I hope Indiana is at least one loss by the time they go in there to Ohio State. I don't see who they're honestly based off of what's happened. You never know because it's college football and they may not show up. They got a tough game next. I think Nebraska will be a tough team because it's probably going to be one of the better offenses they've played. But I mean, come on, they play Nebraska, Washington, Michigan State, and Michigan next before Ohio State. And the only team I'm even relatively worried about for them is Michigan. But they play Michigan at home. They do go to Columbus, so that's gonna suck. It's gonna be a very difficult game for them. But there's a very good chance Indiana goes into Ohio State undefeated, and that would be crazy. So because
I
then that is
think
the battle for Big Ten supremacy. So
I'll tell you this: the way it looks moving forward, because I think Nebraska is a decent team, but I don't think Nebraska is as good as people have been putting them out to be. Um, I think Indiana. I think they win out. I think Indiana wins out. Nebraska, Washington, Michigan State. I mean, good programs, but not so great teams this year. Washington, maybe, you know, I don't want to use Michigan as much of a metric because I think Michigan's mid again. So them losing to Washington wasn't all that surprising. But I think Indiana has a very good likelihood of winning out, even
yeah,
against Michigan. And we might see Indiana, an undefeated Indiana, and Ohio State duke it out for Big Ten supremacy in
which is
Columbus.
crazy to think. But
I don't think
um,
Indiana's beating Ohio State, but I don't want to, lean too much on that. And I think it's just a talent gap. Once Indiana ends up playing like a roster like Ohio State in Columbus with Ryan Day coaching that's I'll say this,
yeah,
that's going to be their heyday. Like, you better show up and play your best football, because if you want a chance to beat that team, and that's your dream game right there, make it happen.
yeah.
So, I mean, I'm
Well,
rooting for Indiana, but we'll see.
I
So,
always like to see
go
these
Hoosiers.
underdogs. Yeah, as I say, I always like to see these underdogs and these teams that you never hear of come up out of nowhere and have killer seasons. But this
Let me
has
tell you
been
something. You Hoosiers, you better win the rest of your season. Let me tell you what, because I want to see you take the Big Ten, because forget the Buckeyes. Nobody likes them. We want Indiana to represent the Big Ten in the playoffs.
just don't beat my Longhorns.
Go Hoosiers. But
Anyway, so
anyway,
that has been the Talk-Ons top 15. I think this is
for
what's going
week
to
7.
conclude the episode. We
Yeah,
still,
that's
once
all
again,
we're
a
doing for
little bit
today,
over
guys.
time.
We still went about 10 minutes over our mark. That was already a mark pushed forward from the original mark, but
So,
we still cut it down. We're still getting better, because we're figuring out a better system and way to structure
about a
these
half an
things.
hour every week.
Yeah, that's something. I mean, we're shooting for a half hour to 45 minutes at the
All
most
right.
per episode.
Yeah.
But
Well,
I
let's not
think
yap on the ladder in and ruin it.
I'll
So,
just say that I think it's circumstantial, because number one, we kind of put it off and weren't able to make another episode for week uh, after week 5. And how crazy this past weekend was for college football. There was just kind of a lot to talk about.
yeah.
So sorry that we went over the mark, but we couldn't help it this time, guys. But if you stuck around this long, we really appreciate you tuning in and listen to us yap and yap about college football, the official Talk-Ons
Yeah.
college football podcast.
Thank you for listening. And I think the final thing to end this is we just give one more moment for prayer for the Missouri Tigers.
Thoughts and prayers to the Missouri Tigers. You guys suck. Well, everybody, this has been Hank Skill coming at you with propane and propane accessories on college football and
Missouri's Ghost. The frightening look of Brady Cook trying to run the ball and stumbling every time he moves.
I like that
So
rhyme
scary.
they had there. Bars. Spooky bars.
Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you Thursday, I believe, right? Do we
Hopefully.
want to
We're
do Thursday or
supposed
do
to
we want to do
make
Friday morning?
let's shoot for Thursday, but you guys, it's gonna be either Thursday or Friday that we're gonna have our next episode, which will be the picks and predictions for this weekend for the week 7 games. So that'll be our next episode. So be looking out for it. Subscribe and keep tuning in, man, as much as you can hack it. This has been the Talk-Ons with Brother Cam and
Brother Chase.
All right. You guys have a lovely Tuesday, even though Tuesday is the worst day of the week. And we shall hopefully catch you guys Thursday for our next episode. All right. Peace out, nerds.